Stop scrolling, because this isn't about fame, this is about something Hollywood almost forgot. Imagine being so calm, so respectful, that the world's most powerful women, Charlize Theron, Sandra Bullock, Winona Ryder, openly flirt with you, not for attention, not for headlines, but because your presence feels safe. Keanu Reeves never chased love, yet love kept finding him, and what happened behind the scenes will change how you see him forever. Welcome to a world of imagination. The stories on this channel are entirely fictional, designed to entertain and captivate. Any resemblance to real people, events, or situations is purely coincidental. These narratives are not a reflection of reality, but a playful escape into the realm of creativity. Enjoy the adventure and let your imagination run wild. Wait, stop scrolling for a second. Not because of a scandal, not because of some shocking headline, but because this is one of those rare Hollywood stories that makes you pause and think, how is this even real? Imagine being so kind, so calm, and so genuinely human that some of the most iconic women in Hollywood openly flirt with you. Not for fame, not for attention, and definitely not for publicity, but simply because of who you are when the cameras are both on and off. That man is Keanu Reeves. In an industry where loud personalities often steal the spotlight, Keanu has mastered something far more powerful: quiet presence. He isn't the actor who dominates interviews or interrupts others to make a point. He doesn't brag about box office numbers, awards, or his influence. He doesn't chase headlines or manufacture controversy to stay relevant. In fact, most of the time, he seems almost uncomfortable being praised. And yet, again and again, the world watches something remarkable happen. Legendary actresses smile differently when they speak to him. They laugh more freely. They lean in. They soften, not because he's trying to impress them, but because he never is. Keanu Reeves doesn't walk into a room demanding attention. He simply brings calm with him. And in Hollywood, a place built on pressure, performance, and constant judgment, that calm feels rare, almost magnetic. Watch interviews carefully. You'll notice how he listens instead of waiting to speak, how he gives others space instead of pulling the spotlight toward himself, how he reacts with humility even when someone openly admires him. That subtle behavior creates something far more attractive than charm. It creates emotional safety. And that's where the story becomes fascinating, because it's not just fans who feel this way. It's not just social media or viral clips. It's women who have seen everything Hollywood has to offer. Charlize Theron, strong, confident, fearless, a woman known for her independence and emotional intelligence. When she interacts with Keanu, there's a visible ease, a natural warmth. The flirting doesn't feel scripted. It feels like comfort. Sandra Bullock, America's sweetheart, known for her wit and honesty. Her connection with Keanu is filled with gentle humor and unspoken emotion. Years later, both would admit they had feelings for each other, but never acted on them. Not out of fear, but out of respect. Winona Ryder, an icon across generations. With her, Keanu shares something even deeper, a timeless bond. Their interactions carry familiarity, trust, and affection that doesn't need explanation. It feels lived in, like two souls who understand each other without words. 3 powerful women. 3 different eras of Hollywood. 3 completely different personalities. And one man who never tried to win them over, yet somehow left a lasting impression on all of them. That's what makes this story different. This isn't about rumors or tabloid gossip. It's not about secret relationships or hidden scandals. This is a story about how someone makes others feel. Keanu Reeves shows us that attraction doesn't always come from confidence that shouts. Sometimes it comes from confidence that listens, from respect that doesn't expect anything in return, from presence that feels steady in a world that rarely slows down. In a place where image is everything, Keanu chose authenticity. In a culture obsessed with attention, he chose humility. And in doing so, he became something Hollywood barely sees anymore. A man people admire not for what he takes, but for what he quietly gives. And that's why this story matters. Charlize Theron has never been the kind of woman who flirts for the camera. She is known in Hollywood as fearless, confident, and emotionally sharp. Someone who sees through pretense very quickly. Over the years, she has worked with some of the biggest names in the industry, yet she has always maintained a certain distance in public appearances. Charlize doesn't perform affection. She doesn't play into rumors. And she certainly doesn't flirt easily, especially not in front of an audience. That's why people notice when something felt different around Keanu Reeves. From the very beginning of their collaboration, there was a visible shift in her body language whenever Keanu was near. In interviews, her posture relaxed. Her laughter came more naturally. She teased him lightly, not in an exaggerated way, but in a comfortable, almost playful manner. On red carpets, she leaned slightly toward him when he spoke, listening with a softness that fans weren't used to seeing from her. These weren't dramatic moments. There were no bold statements or grand gestures. Instead, it was the small details that caught everyone's attention, the kind you can't fake. Fans began pointing out how Charlize smiled differently when Keanu talked, how she seemed at ease, unguarded, almost protected by his presence. It wasn't flirtation designed to create headlines. It felt instinctive. Then came the moment that quietly confirmed what many had already sensed. Charlize openly admitted in an interview that Keanu Reeves was one of the most respectful and emotionally safe men she had ever worked with. In an industry where power dynamics can be uncomfortable and egos often dominate, that statement carried weight. She wasn't praising his fame or talent. She was speaking about how he made people feel around him. And that respect changed everything. Because respect creates space. And space allows chemistry to grow naturally. What developed between Charlize and Keanu wasn't allowed. Manufactured chemistry Hollywood often tries to sell. There were no exaggerated flirtatious lines, no forced romantic tension. Instead, there was a quiet understanding, an ease that allowed both of them to be themselves without performance. Keanu, true to his nature, never leaned into flirtation. He didn't try to impress her with confidence or charm. He didn't raise his voice, dominate conversations, or respond with flashy gestures. Instead, he did something far rarer. He listened. When Charlize spoke, he gave her his full attention. When she joked, he smiled softly instead of stealing the moment. When she teased him, he responded with humility, never ego. He treated her not as a prize, not as a headline, but as an equal. And that equality is where the attraction lived. Charlize is a woman who has built her career on strength and independence. She doesn't need validation, and she doesn't tolerate disrespect. Being around someone who didn't challenge her authority, didn't compete with her energy, and didn't expect anything in return created a sense of emotional safety that's incredibly rare in Hollywood. That safety became chemistry.
Not the kind that explodes on screen, but the kind that quietly lingers. People watching could feel it. Not because it was obvious, but because it was real. It showed in the pauses between their words, in the way Charlize seemed more open, more playful, more relaxed. It showed in how Keanu allowed her space instead of filling it with himself. And perhaps that's why this flirtation surprised everyone. Because it wasn't driven by attraction alone. It was driven by trust. Sometimes, the strongest attraction doesn't come from confidence that demands attention. It comes from calm that invites it. From kindness that doesn't expect anything back. From respect that creates room for connection to exist naturally. With Charlize Theron and Keanu Reeves, that quiet dynamic told a story far more powerful than any rumor ever could. It reminded the world that real chemistry isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It's felt. And in that silence, everyone noticed. Now, let's dive into one of Hollywood's most talked about almost love stories, the one between Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock. It's a story that feels timeless because it isn't dramatic. There were no tabloid scandals, no on-set romances plastered across magazine covers. Instead, it's a story about quiet attraction, respect, and what might have been, a connection that is remembered decades later simply because it was real. It all started with Speed, the blockbuster action film that paired Keanu and Sandra together for the first time. From the very first scenes, the chemistry between them was undeniable. Fans noticed it instantly. Interviews captured it, and even the cast couldn't help but sense the spark. It wasn't the over-the-top, Hollywood-style romance you often see in movies. It was subtle, natural, and magnetic. There was laughter, teasing, and a comfortable energy that neither could hide. Years later, Sandra Bullock revealed something that stunned fans. She admitted that she had a secret crush on Keanu during the filming of Speed. She didn't make it a big deal, but the admission showed that even someone as confident and accomplished as Sandra could be genuinely captivated by Keanu's presence. And then there was Keanu's side of the story. In rare interviews, he revealed that he, too, had a crush on Sandra at the same time. Two people, feeling the same way, in the same moment, but neither ever acted on it. Why didn't it happen? Why did a mutual crush never blossom into a romance? The answer lies in the core of who Keanu Reeves is. Keanu respects boundaries. He never crosses lines for personal gain or momentary desire. And Sandra, being the consummate professional she is, valued professionalism above all else. She understood the importance of focus on work, and Keanu, true to his nature, honored that without complaint. Their unspoken agreement created an invisible but powerful tension, a connection that was felt deeply but never expressed openly. Even though nothing romantic ever occurred between them, the dynamic was full of playful, innocent flirtation. In interviews and public appearances years later, Sandra often smiles at Keanu with a teasing glint in her eyes. She calls him sweet, laughs at his jokes, and playfully nudges him, bringing back the sense of closeness they shared on set. Keanu responds in kind, not with grand gestures, but with gentle humor and humility, often appearing almost shy under her gaze. It's a rare type of interaction, flirtation that is subtle, natural, and without pretense. No dramatics, no games, just a quiet connection that feels authentic. Fans who followed them over the years could sense it. They could feel the lingering energy in interviews and public interactions. And perhaps that's why this story has remained in the public imagination for decades. It's not about scandal or drama, it's about what could have been, and about the emotional resonance of two people who admired each other deeply but never allowed circumstance to complicate their integrity. This almost love story also teaches something profound about relationships, attraction, and respect. Sometimes, the strongest connections are not the ones that are acted upon. Sometimes, the most memorable romances are the ones that remain unfulfilled, not because of a lack of feelings, but because both parties value something higher: respect, trust, and professionalism. It is in this restraint, this unspoken understanding, that the beauty of their connection truly shines. Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves' story reminds us that love isn't always about possession or public declaration. Love can exist in quiet smiles, in playful teasing, in unspoken admiration. Their connection, fleeting, subtle, and yet incredibly powerful, continues to resonate with fans because it feels real, honest, and untarnished by the artificiality that often surrounds Hollywood relationships. Decades later, people still talk about it. Not as a scandal, not as a headline, but as a classic tale of unspoken connection, mutual respect, and the rare kind of chemistry that lingers long after the cameras stop rolling. It's a story that proves sometimes the most beautiful love stories are the ones that never happen, but still manage to change hearts forever. In the end, the flirtation between Sandra and Keanu wasn't loud, dramatic, or made for headlines. It was subtle, tender, and real. And that is exactly why it remains one of Hollywood's most captivating almost love stories of all time. If there's one woman whose connection with Keanu Reeves feels almost timeless, it is Winona Ryder. Unlike many Hollywood stories that flash in the tabloids and fade within weeks, the bond between Winona and Keanu has a quality that seems to transcend time, a quiet depth that makes it unforgettable. Their story didn't start with headlines or public speculation. It started decades ago, on film sets, in moments that felt both ordinary and extraordinary. Their first major collaboration was in Dracula, a film that gave audiences a glimpse into their professional synergy. Both young stars were already carving out impressive careers, yet there was an unmistakable ease between them. They were colleagues, but the connection went beyond professional respect. It was built on mutual understanding, trust, and a subtle yet profound emotional resonance. Years later, they reunited in Destination Wedding, and what had been a quiet professional bond transformed into something richer, layered, and noticeable to anyone paying close attention. Winona herself has revealed stories that stunned fans and added a playful twist to their connection. She once joked that she and Keanu might actually be married, referring to a real ceremony scene in a film that involved actual vows and a real priest. Fans laughed, But behind the humor was a truth. There is a level of intimacy and trust between them that few others in Hollywood experience. The joke wasn't just a joke, it was a glimpse into the depth of their connection, a subtle acknowledgement of a bond that feels rare in an industry defined by superficiality. What makes their dynamic particularly fascinating is how Winona flirts with Keanu openly, yet sincerely, in interviews and public appearances. This isn't playful teasing meant for tabloids. There's no forced humor or exaggerated gestures. Her flirtation is genuine, affectionate, and warm. She looks at him with admiration and respect, her expressions revealing comfort and familiarity that only comes from knowing someone deeply. In interviews, when she talks about Keanu, there's a noticeable softness in her voice, a twinkle in her eyes, a warmth that cannot be manufactured. It's as though she's acknowledging a man who, in a world full of pretense, has remained authentic. Keanu, in turn, responds in kind. His respect for Winona is evident in every interaction. He never objectifies her, never makes grandiose gestures to impress. Instead, he honors her presence quietly and humbly. Whether in interviews, casual conversations, or public appearances, his demeanor communicates admiration, loyalty, and a deep understanding of her as a person. There's no exaggeration, no need for dramatics, just a sincere recognition of their connection. Their interactions almost feel like old souls recognizing one another. They communicate in ways that go beyond words, a shared glance, a subtle smile, a comfortable silence that speaks volumes. There's a rhythm to their connection, a natural harmony that doesn't need explanation or justification. It's intimate yet understated, powerful yet gentle. This is flirting stripped of pretense, uncollared by ego, and untainted by the artificiality that often surrounds celebrity relationships. Part of what makes their story legendary is its authenticity. Hollywood is notorious for fleeting romances and exaggerated headlines, yet Winona and Keanu's connection has endured. Over decades, they have maintained a relationship marked by mutual respect, admiration, and unspoken understanding. Winona has even remarked that Keanu is one of the few people in Hollywood who has never changed, someone whose authenticity has remained steadfast despite fame, pressure, and the constant scrutiny of the public eye. That statement alone speaks volumes about why their bond feels so rare and special. The way they flirt, openly, but not dramatically, is a lesson in subtlety. It is not about drawing attention or creating spectacle. It is about acknowledging a deep connection, appreciating another person's presence, and expressing admiration through simple, sincere gestures. The warmth Winona shows and the respect Keanu gives form a unique dynamic that feels timeless and genuine. In essence, their story is not about romance in the conventional sense. It's about emotional intimacy, shared respect, and quiet admiration. It's about a bond that defies the superficiality of Hollywood, a connection that feels as real today as it did decades ago. Their flirtation is understated yet magnetic, quiet yet unforgettable. It's proof that some connections transcend fame, media attention, and the pressures of stardom. Connections that linger in the heart long after the cameras stop rolling. Winona Ryder and Keanu Reeves have turned their subtle, respectful flirtation into something legendary. Not because it was loud, dramatic, or scandalous, but because it was real, authentic, timeless, and deeply human. And that is exactly what makes their story stand out in Hollywood history. A quiet, enduring connection that will be remembered for generations. So, what is it about Keanu Reeves that draws some of Hollywood's most powerful, confident women toward him? Is it his striking looks? Certainly, he's handsome, but that alone doesn't explain the fascination. Is it his fame, the global recognition, the millions of fans? Not entirely. Is it his wealth or luxurious lifestyle? Again, no. While those things might attract casual attention, they don't explain the kind of deep, genuine admiration and flirtation he receives from women like Charlize Theron, Sandra Bullock, and Winona Ryder. The truth goes far beyond the surface. It's Keanu's energy, the kind of presence that makes people feel seen, valued, and safe. Unlike many in Hollywood, he doesn't dominate conversations to assert authority. He listens. Really listens. When someone speaks to him, he's fully present. He doesn't just hear words, he absorbs the tone, the subtle emotions behind them. This kind of attentiveness is rare in an industry dominated by ego, competition, and self-promotion. For women who are used to performing or guarding themselves around powerful men, Keanu's ability to create emotional space is magnetic. Keanu treats everyone around him with respect, especially women. He doesn't see them as prizes to be won or conquests to boast about. He treats them as equals, individuals with their own strengths, stories, and boundaries. This fundamental attitude creates a rare type of attraction. It's not about conquest, it's about connection. Women who are strong, confident, and self-assured feel comfortable around him because they don't feel the need to defend themselves or navigate hidden agendas. They feel safe to be authentic. Look at his interactions with Charlize Theron. She felt at ease, free to joke, tease, and relax in his presence because he never tried to control or impress her. With Sandra Bullock, he maintained a delicate balance of flirtation and respect, honoring boundaries while still allowing a playful energy to exist between them. And with Winona Ryder, his steadiness, loyalty, and authenticity allowed a deep emotional connection to flourish, even decades later. The common thread is clear. Keanu never changes his fundamental decency to gain favor or attention. Humility is another key part of his charm. In a world obsessed with status, attention, and constant validation, Keanu chooses to remain grounded. He doesn't flaunt his wealth or accomplishments. He doesn't chase publicity. Instead, he focuses on being himself, kind, generous, and present. This humility creates a paradoxical allure. The more he refuses to seek admiration, the more admiration he naturally receives. Strong, confident women are drawn to this rare blend of calm assurance, respect, and genuine human connection. Keanu's consistency is remarkable. Over decades, despite massive fame and intense media scrutiny, he has remained largely the same person. He doesn't bend his principles to fit the Hollywood mold. He doesn't exaggerate or perform for the cameras. This unwavering authenticity is magnetic. People sense when someone is real, and in Hollywood, that is practically revolutionary. This combination of attentiveness, respect, humility, and consistency is why women like Charlize Theron, Sandra Bullock, and Winona Ryder feel naturally drawn to him. It's not about him chasing them or trying to impress. In fact, it's the opposite. By staying true to himself and respecting their individuality, he creates an environment where authentic connection can thrive. That is the essence of the kind of flirting and admiration he attracts. It is quiet, respectful, and sincere, rather than performative or superficial. In the end, Keanu Reeves reminds us that true charm isn't loud or aggressive, it's quiet, consistent, and kind. It's the kind of charm that doesn't demand attention but earns it effortlessly. It's a presence that reassures, comforts, and allows people to be themselves. And maybe that's why, in an industry obsessed with glitz, ego, and theatrics, Hollywood keeps falling for him. Not because of his fame, money, or looks, but because of the rare, human qualities he embodies. Respect, humility, authenticity, and the ability to make people feel truly seen. Keanu Reeves is a lesson in subtle power. He shows that kindness can be magnetic, respect can be irresistible, and authenticity can be unforgettable. That is why women flirt with him not as an act of vanity, but because being around him feels like coming home to someone who truly understands you. And in a world where genuine human connection is rare, that makes him unforgettable.